Our Margaret Brennan is at the White House. So, Margaret, even though we haven't seen the Congressional Budget Office's assessment yet, the White House and top Republicans are already casting doubts on its analysis. So why would they do that?
Well, lower expectations, Vlad. It's always an expectations game when it comes to financial markets and Washington politics in terms of the sales job. We already see and know the vice president will be out there this weekend really pushing publicly for an endorsement of this plan while President Trump remains here at the White House for a working weekend to try to really get their ducks in a row as they try to sell their own party on supporting this, even without, as you pointed out, a price tag attached. It's a sales job without a cost estimate, and we expect Republican leaders by as soon as Monday to come up with a dollar figure as to how much this is going to cost taxpayers. Setting expectations aside, saying that the Congressional Budget Office, which is supposed to predict and estimate for American taxpayers what the cost could be, with the White House saying that, well, they're not usually accurate or haven't been, at least in the past, when it came to estimating Obamacare. That's the White House way of saying, don't trust those numbers, trust us. And we'll just see just how big a price selling this Trump care package will be.
So would the CBO have any sway over the next committee markup at all, Margaret?
Well, all these estimates are going to have some sway because there needs to be some estimate of how much this is going to cost taxpayers and whether the congressionally elected leaders can get their constituents to ultimately support them. The problem right now is that the way that this is structured for conservatives who are looking more on the fiscal side of things, like Rand Paul, they don't like that tax credits are used in a way that's very similar to Obamacare. So you also have pressure on that side, while you also see the vice president try to sway socially conservative Republicans to sign on to things with future promises of things like defunding Planned Parenthood and putting in a ban on any use of federal funds for abortions, which already exists. So the numbers game is almost something that they're trying to de-emphasize at this point. While they can work on Capitol Hill on reconciliation to work through those specifics of the bill, you already see Vice President Pence out there saying, trust us, in step 2 and 3, we'll get to those issues that are of concern to social conservatives, even though right now they're not the kind of things that are being handled.
Okay, Margaret, let's move on to another topic that I think a lot of people find interesting is the fact that the president has kept a fairly low profile all week. He's been a brand man for decades. He's put his name on anything he's ever had any control over or that he's owned. There were some that suggested that maybe this new health care bill would be called Trump Care. The White House is saying no way. So I'm wondering what your sense is and what the feeling in Washington is now that the vice president is the one out there promoting this bill.
Well, Republicans have been running for well over a year now on this idea of repealing and replacing Obamacare. However, the replacement part is where all of them seem to disagree, and none of them are completely sure of how they want to accomplish everything in a way that can both meet the expectations they've set for themselves and meet the needs of their constituents. And so that's also where you see the president. He ran on this brand of saying, I'm going to give you something better than what you currently have. And what he's selling right now is a plan that he didn't draft. It's something that Paul Ryan, House Speaker, has come up with, which is why you also see him on the sales job here. But all this political infighting emphasizes here that this was easier branding for a campaign that it is legislating and governing now. And House Speaker Paul Ryan has emphasized that look, it was easier for us to be an opposition party, speaking on behalf of Republicans, complaining about what the government was doing under Obama. Now that we control the White House and Capitol Hill, it's a little bit harder here to get everyone running in the same direction. So I think that's also why you see the president and his advisors a little hesitant to put the Trump Care label on this yet, because the president didn't write it, and they're not sure if they can even get this fully sold, since you have senators like Rand Paul and senators like Tom Cotton who are saying this is not going to pass the Senate the way you've got it written right now.
All right, Margaret, I want to play a little bit of video for our viewers, reporters trying to ask President Trump questions about his wiretapping allegations. Let's play that.
Thank you, Thank you. Thank you, Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Margaret. So I was leaning into the camera just to see what I could see there. I mean, clearly the president not answering anything, and people from his staff shooing the White House press corps out of that office. Is it your sense, are you hearing from the administration or others that this could be fallout from his early morning tweeting with regards to President Obama, former President Obama, wiretapping the offices of Trump Tower?
Well, we know this is the 6th straight day where President Trump has not responded to any reporters' questions. That's very unusual for Donald Trump. Often in these sprays, he wants to showcase what he's getting done and show that he's at work. And this week, he's really remained mum, really sticking to scripted remarks, really focusing on what they want to emphasize is a busy working agenda. What he did talk about today was health care, and that was the only photo spray that we were allowed into as reporters. We've had very limited access this week to him. The White House would say that's because he's busy, that it's not unusual, but we know from at least these last 49 days of the 50 days President Trump has been in office, it's not been the standard practice. So you can speculate, we can all speculate that this has something to do with what was really a self-inflicted wound here that President Trump started. He really started a political firestorm with that series of 4 tweets last Saturday. The White House came out Sunday and said, we're not going to talk about it anymore. And of course, that's put the White House spokespeople in a very difficult position on a daily basis because of the political outcry and calls for action on Capitol Hill. But they haven't still give any kind of explanation as to exactly what triggered President Trump to say those very specific, very loaded things about his predecessor wiretapping his phones. So it's been a very difficult week for them, I think, of the PR front, trying to clean that up and trying to refocus on some of the things that President Trump says he wants to do, like healthcare repeal and replace, which there's this new emphasis on urgency, even though the bill's not fully written and the price tag's not attached.
Margaret, finally, I want to ask you about Attorney General Jeff Sessions. He previously asked appointed U.S. attorneys to resign. Generally, it's my understanding that these U.S. attorneys have 4-year terms that more or less are in line with each administration, given that they're appointed by the president. So is this something typical for new administrations, or is this atypical?
There's often turnover, and if you're politically appointed, you can largely assume that you may be asked by the new leadership, Attorney General Jeff Sessions and the president, who supports him, to leave your post. However, what is unusual about this case is that what we understand is, particularly in the state of New York, the Attorney General there, Preet Bharara, who had a very high profile when it came to prosecuting financial crimes on Wall Street and other very high-profile cases, that he had actually met personally with President Trump in the fall before inauguration, and he said he had been told by the president he'd be keeping his job, and that Attorney General Jeff Sessions also gave him that assurance. So for someone like that to learn today that actually that's not true, you are going to be asked to resign, it starts raising questions about whether this is doing what some conservative television hosts and other commentators have called for, which is clearing the decks and getting rid of anyone who used to work for the prior administration.
Very interesting. Margaret Brennan for us on the White House lawn, where it looks like it's very chilly, Margaret. We thank you for spending some time with us. Appreciate it.